Mzansi, don't cry. Gotta keep your head up, even when the road is hard. Never give up. Mzansi, don't cry. People say they don't know that Tupac song. That song exists. That's one of the bangers from Tupac, where he goes on to say, Mzansi is a movie. It's a series. It's a drama. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of The Dissection. Today was the turn of General Sibiya to give his testimony to the ad hoc committee of Parliament on the allegations raised by General Konazi about infiltration in the executive, in the police, by Hoshkaristans with Hoshinanigans, who are actually infiltrating everywhere to facilitate their criminal activities. So, in the committee, he said two explosive things. Number one, he said he knows and he met Brown Envelope Mogotsi. He says he knows and he met Vusi the cat Matlala Wetsa Manyala. Those two pieces of testimony, I think, are going to follow him throughout the questions that will be asked to him by the members of Parliament. But before we get to those explosive parts of the testimony, let me give you an overview of how the day went. The day actually got delayed. Started off with the debate about the recusal of certain members of Parliament in the committee because they opened cases against the Minister of Police and General Cibia. So the Member of Parliament from the Democratic Alliance opened a case. Member of Parliament from the MK Party opened a case. The Democratic Alliance took the view that there was a conflict of interest. The MK Party took a different view. They said, no, we want to quash this man, we want to continue. And they took the view that there was no conflict of interest because opening a case is not a prejudgment, and it's actually asking the police to look into allegations raised by another person, in this case, General Konazi, and because the MP in question, Skosana, was opening the case on behalf of the party. So they said, we need to stay in this. We're not taking anybody off this particular committee. We're not sitting anybody on the bench. What is interesting from the DA is that Glenys Breitenbach did say she knows Cibia quite well. She's worked with him, had interactions with him, but she did not think she was conflicted. She said, with me, there's a perception. With the other member, there's an actual conflict. I don't know how there's a conflict in opening a case, but in knowing somebody. Because a conflict of interest and a perception of a conflict of interest in and of itself is sufficient, by the way. A conflict of interest sometimes happens when you have a favorable relationship with somebody. You should not be participating in deliberations about them because procedurally that also affects fairness. You could be too generous, too laissez-faire in how you approach them, too nonchalant about issues that you should be concerned about, right? So it's not just about adversarial. It can also be about, having a proclivity and favorability to that particular person. So it was amusing or interesting to observe that she thought, no, I'm good, I'm staying. The other member opened a case, she can leave. They ultimately decided to proceed with the testimony with the member from MK present. When General Cibia came back into the room and he saw that, no, the MK member is still there. He objected to the inclusion, said he's presenting testimony under protest, he had to go talk to his lawyers. It was a whole movie, so that delayed things. When things finally got going, Cibia went over his career record, and then he also went over some of the allegations that have been following him. The Zimbabwe rendition case, the fraud complaint, which was laid up against him by, I think it was Ketla Stole at the time, the City of Johannesburg case where he said he was cleared by the Office of the Public Protector, which to me, I don't think it's a robust enough investigation of the allegations that he was facing, simply because sometimes we've seen that the Office of the Public Protector can make decisions under this administration, which sometimes you'd be like, I don't know. But he said he was cleared. One of the big challenges that General Cibia is going to face in terms of public credibility is that he always seems to be in the mix of certain scandals. At some point, there was also the scandal of Mzilikazi wa Africa, who was abducted, a journalist, taken to Mpumalanga, and Cibia was involved. You can see him in the pictures at the back when that Mzilikazi wa Africa journalist was abducted. So that's another thing that he may have to respond to. But as you begin to go through the list, other people were convicted, by the way, for the Zimbabwe rendition case. I think the one guy had a suspended sentence of 18 years or something like that, which is a weird judgment. But story for another day. He explained and addressed that. So he said his problems with General Konazi started when he got involved in the AKA murder case. And to summate it, it appears that he gave instructions to junior members of Konazi's team to go and brief Begekele about the AKA investigation, because Begekele wanted to speak definitively and authoritatively on it in the public and to the media. And General Konazi was not impressed because he said, I spoke to the junior because I couldn't get Konazi. Konazi was in a meeting. He doesn't answer calls when he's in a meeting. He hands the phone to somebody else so that he can focus on the work. And he was like, I wasn't going to wait for that man to finish his meeting. I was like, get me somebody, anybody. We need somebody to come up here, talk to Begekele. And that caused problems between him and General Konazi. And then after that, he didn't go to certain events. He was not even telling Konazi that he's in Durban July. And I think, if he had told Konazi in advance that he was going to Durban July, I think Konazi was going to arrest him. I really think Konazi was going to bumper that guy, because even the way Konazi was saying, was like, tell me just in case you have a flat tire, in case it ain't, we need to know if you got a flat tire. It's like, bumper, we want to bumper you. That's what I think. Look, I'm just being a little bit frivolous. I'm not saying that's actually what Konazi was going to do, but based on everything that played out after Durban July. Also, Cibia likes things. Durban July, top cop. When's I in Durban July? Anyway, and he didn't want to say that he was at Durban July. He was like, I was at an event that happens, in KwaZulu-Natal around about this time of the year. And we've always seen all kinds of movies around Durban July. If you recall, there was the guy who brought up a large convoy, Sam, and then that convoy ended up collapsing him. It's not the kind of event you need to go to if you have skeletons in your closet in general. So let's get to the most interesting thing. For me today, the highlight of the day, Cibia said that he knows Brown Moti, he knows Vusi Matlala. And as he was explaining, some of the explanations were not adding up, and I'll tell you why I say that as we play those particular clips. He said he knows Brown Moti to the extent that they exchanged messages, calls, and had meetings. He says just part of his job to get to know these types of people. Let me play you part of this clip. I'm going to play about 5 minutes of this because I think it's significant. So just pay attention. I'm going to come back and give you my thoughts after the end of the clip. But this, I think, was relevant, significant, and worth paying attention to.
Do you know Brown Moti? I know Brown Moti. How do you know him? Brown Moti, I know him as an activist in Northwest, but I didn't know him. I also Googled him and I saw him at some point. He was commenting and making it was an interview, but relating to the former premier and Gauteng. Of former premier of Northwest, and he also contacted me. Remember that he would also collect some information there around there, what is going on, whether be it the tender-related corruptions there or concerns that he had, and then also he ended up also aiding the fact that look. I just also want to warn you that you must know that the intelligence people are working on you. They're busy in your case after you. I knew about it, and then he was just telling me something that I was aware of.
General, are you saying that he called you?
You called me, Chair.
And informed you that the intelligence people are listening to you or are investigating you?
Yes, Chair, and that was the case.
Without you having had a discussion with him before about a matter like that?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
I had not even met him, not even once. Even my records can show.
So how does he get your number? I mean, a senior person like you in the police, I'm sure a lot of our citizens would want to phone higher up sometimes when they're frustrated because a crime that's not being addressed or followed up or solved, and then they want to phone higher up. Now, you don't know this guy?
Counsel, I don't know this guy. I never contacted him before, and you do get it because at this level, you get calls from citizens of this country, and they will tell you that I'm so and so. I've been given your number by so and so and so and so. Sometimes another one will call and say, "How can I get this person?" And then they will phone around. Ultimately, they'll come across your number. even the ministers, they do get calls from people they least expected from.
So he must have gotten your number from a third party or some people.
That's correct.
And there's nothing unusual about that, you say?
It happens all the time, Council.
And he also gave you some information that, some people are after you, words to that effect.
That's correct, Chair.
So he's peddles information.
The council put it that way.
Of a political nature.
He will call you and tell you that, hey, Chief, be careful, 1, 2, 3, 4 is happening. And then mine is to see how I deal with this information.
Okay. And did you ever meet him in person?
Yes, twice.
When was that and where?
The very first time when we went to operate in KZ in Durban, January 8th, we were there on official duties.
On?
Official duties.
Yeah.
And then I called and said, will you be in Cape Town? I said, yes, I will be there, sir. I will be working. He said, I'll come greet you. Once we are going there. I said, it's fine. And then he did come to the hotel where I was at that time. And he came, greeted me. It was during breakfast, and he left in town.
And where was that? Which hotel was that? In Cape Town?
Yeah, in Cape Town, in town. But it's one of the Southern Sun hotels.
Was that with the January 8th?
Yes. I had the issue of the Camps Bay, but in Camps Bay, it was actually a friend of mine, Malusi Zondo, that I met at Camps Bay in Tyler's Mill. They were there also eating, and I said, okay, I'll come and see you, and went there and greeted, and we left.
But why would you give audience to someone you don't know? He must have some kind of influence to access you directly and even to have breakfast with you. Not many people who don't.
No, I can't say really. Chair, I don't have any reason to say, no, I can't see you. You're talking to a person over the phone all the time, you're talking to the person over the phone, and then he tells you and says, will you be there? And I say, yes. I say, I'll come and greet you. I say, it's okay. To me, I didn't see anything wrong.
But he must have dropped a name or two to persuade you to meet him for breakfast.
No, he didn't drop names other than telling me that, Chief, be careful here and there. And then he will give me information. And the information that he gave me, you find that is the information that I know and that I see is happening around me.
So did he give you that information there over breakfast?
No, all the time when we speak.
So how many calls did he make to you, more or less? You said you mentioned you spoke to him all the time.
Yeah, at that time it wasn't that many times.
So again, so how many times more or less did he phone you? How many times more or less did he meet you? Was the Cape Town breakfast meeting on January 8th or wherever it was, on the eve of January 8th? Was that the only time you...
He met me only once here in Cape Town.
Firstly, can we talk about the Brown Mogotsi Black Book? Brown Envelopes Mogotsi has got a black book that is impressive. His Rolodex keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. I mean, where does he get all these contact details? The man has more connections than a Hosh Karimama who was a regular in the Konka VIP section. You know, what's this place? D48. He has more connections than a Hosh Karimama who's trending at D48. I don't know what the name is. It D48 or something? I don't know. Those places. I don't go to those places. So the man was and is reaching out to everyone. He reached out to General Konazi, and Konazi was like, what is this? Who are you? Get out of here. He reached out to Fikile Mbalula. Fikile Mbalula was like, who is this guy? He's not even a member. Reached out to General Sibiya. Sibiya was like, hey, what do you have to say? You either coming for me? All right, let's talk. Let's meet. Not only was he reaching out to all of these people, he was privy to detailed police information. Even when he was having discussions with Vusi Matlala Manyala, he had access to police information, key police information. This guy has to be called to the committee. They have to ask him a whole lot of questions about some of the stuff that he has been implicated in. How is it that he has everybody's number? Now, let's talk about the answer that General Sibiya gave. Firstly, the answer that he gave was extremely confusing. And if you were looking for clarity, all that we got from the answer was a swimming pool which has been surrendered to algae, a swimming pool that Sizwe Dlomo would never approve of and would actually go and report at a police station, because you know Sizwe Dlomo loves green lawns, blue pools, pristine blue pools, sparkling blue. You know, this was not that. It was a green swimming pool in terms of clarity. He said, I know him, but I didn't know him. And then I Googled him. He didn't know him, but he Googled him and saw him doing interviews. Which is it? Which is it? Then he also says he contacted me about corruption, about, investigations into me, crime intelligence investigations. And he still thought that was a normal person to be having conversations with. Did you notice that even the chairperson was confused by the answer, and he broke his silence, his usual silence, to say, but Chief, what are you actually saying here? I don't know if you picked that up. If you go back and watch it again, he also stumped the evidence leader, because even the evidence leader was like, what is this fellow actually saying? And Arense was like, no. Because his human nature was like, we can't get in touch with top cops. We can't get in touch with you on the streets. But now this guy, Brown Moti, can get in touch with you, can get breakfast, can meet you at a hotel. He says he took the call from Mogotsi. It happens. That's his job, he says. I must say, I don't buy that, because I personally don't answer calls from unknown numbers. And I wouldn't, because it could be a spam call. I'm busy. I'm working on stuff. Sometimes I'm trying to squeeze in these episodes. People who know me say I'm not good with phone calls. They say that. And particularly with unknown numbers. And now there's this plethora of phone calls from all of these, bots and spam and car insurance and this insurance and that. It's a lot. So I'm not going to be just picking up unknown numbers. And I don't think General Sibiya is different. And by the way, remember, General Sibiya has 4 cell phones. 4 cell phones, an iPad, and a computer. So, 4 cell phones. You're picking up phone calls from unknown numbers. Something is not adding up in that story, right? I'm not sure that the reasonable person would say it's perfectly normal to meet someone who approaches you with secret police information, actually meet them in your hotel for breakfast as a senior police officer in charge of crime intelligence, especially under the conditions upon which Brown Moti emerges in your situation. General Konazi distrusted him because, how did you get a hold of this information? I would have tried to figure out, where is he getting this information from first before saying, oh, this information can help me. The same information he offered to Mkonazi was supposed to help Mkonazi, but Mkonazi said, no, I don't want this information from you. Who are you? So he was, so that we can maybe differ on. You may take a different view and say, hey, crime intelligence, you speak to all kinds of characters. He's reasonable to say that. But here's something that I want to submit to you for your consideration. He was asked many times by advocate, the evidence leader, Andrense. I'm mispronouncing his name. I know I am. He was asked many times. He did not clarify how many times he spoke to Brown Moti. They asked him how many times. Didn't specify. How many times? How many times? How many times? He did not want to specify or estimate how many times he spoke to him. Either he doesn't know, which I don't believe, but I think it's not that he doesn't know, it's or that he spoke to him enough times that it would cause shock and alarm to the public. For instance, if he says I spoke to him 27 times or 93 times or 462 times, whatever that number is, that sounds like a lot. What are you talking about with this guy for so long? At some point, the guy tells you, yeah, I know you're being investigated, blah, 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 and he gives you all the information. That's one phone call. What are the other phone calls about? Is he going to call you back every time to tell you that they're investigating you? Or is he giving you detailed information? That, to me, was not... Other witnesses, when asked for specificity, would give answers. So that reluctance to provide that specific answer, to me, affected my evaluation of his demeanor. I noticed that at times he was coughing before giving some answers. I didn't think too much of that. Some people would have thought that it's a poker. What do they call it? A poker glitch? What is it called in poker when you have this what is it? The towel. It's called a towel. When you have a towel, and then people pick up that every time you respond a certain way, you do certain things, or when you're about to make a particular bet, you do certain things. I don't give that too much because there's a flu going around. Maybe he's coughing, whatever. But the failure to answer a specific question put to him multiple times affected my perception of his demeanor, because it came across to me as evasive behavior. Right? And it's just curious to note that the other people who General Konazi spoke to, who Brown Mogotsi spoke to, did not respond to Brown in the same way. Even Fikile Mbalula did not respond to him in the same way. He even said that I don't want to be associated sometimes with strangers. I want to take pictures because later on I may show up somewhere being implicated or incriminated. Why wouldn't that also come across to General Sibiya as something to pay attention to? Now, something that's also important to point out is that the timing of the meeting corresponds with the timeline that was discussed by General Dumisani Khumalo and the discussions that were happening between Vusi Matlala and Brown Moti. So that to me already provides some corroboration to the version that we heard from General Dumisani Khumalo. Then something else that happened there that also had me thinking about, the motive and perhaps even the credibility of General Sibiya as a witness, is that he spent some time trying to challenge the authenticity of the messages between Brown Moti and Vusi Matlala. First, he said they must be verified by an expert with forensic credentials. When he was told that an expert like that had actually done so, and actually that's what was presented, he then said, but well, if that expert is from the political killings task team, he would doubt the proof because those ones can plant evidence, whatever. He gave no proof of that. Then he was told that the expert was not from the task team. Then he changed his answer to another objection. He was doubting regardless. So imagine I tell you, well, I don't want to go to a particular restaurant because, I'm allergic to seafood. You say, no, there's no seafood at that restaurant. And I say, well, I'm allergic to nuts. Then you tell me there's no nuts at that restaurant. And then you say, well, I'm still allergic to tables and salt and pepper and, the general design of facilities that serve food in malls and other spaces where food is sold. Now you're like, this guy just doesn't want to go. He wants to stay home. He doesn't want to go. This is because I was like, everything that he's being told, he's not giving an indication that there's a certain level of information where you'd be like, oh, okay, if it came from a forensic expert from outside the political killings task team who looked at the data and says these messages are authentic, yeah, sure, they're authentic. Maybe we can talk about the contents and what. These messages have nothing to do with him, by the way. Not directly, except the fact that Mogotsi said he's going to organize a meeting with Cibia, where Mogotsi met with Cibia at some point by his own admission. But why would you spend so much time and energy refuting something that has got nothing to do with you and casting doubt on something that has nothing to do with you, where those are messages between Mogotsi and Matlala? I found that to be, too much effort. Why are you trying so hard? But that to me spoke to demeanor as well. I don't know if you saw or took it the same way, but for me it did. Then he admitted to knowing Vusi Matlala. And there's something that he said there that I think I want to point out to you. Just listen to what he had to say and then come back. I'll tell you what it is.
Do you know Kat Matlala?
I know Kat Matlala.
How do you know him?
We are not friends, or we were not friends. But at the same time, I was getting to know him. I wasn't really, it was, if ever I've met, in my whole life, I've met Mr. Matlala, it is 5 times less. It's not someone that I was really close to. It was just the beginning of knowing each other more. So my interactions with him is really very, very, very limited.
Have you got a relationship with him?
No. Before I came back to the police, I didn't know Kat. Mr. Matlala. I didn't know Mr. Matlala, and I got to know Mr. Matlala when he called, wanting to meet. And I said, no, come to the office.
When was that call?
The call was around about I can't remember exactly.
You say, I know Vusi Matlala as a service provider of the SAPS.
Paragraph 28, page 28,
Page 26,
26.
paragraph 81.
Yes.
Do you want to read from there, or do you want to?
Yes, I do know Vusi Matlala as a service provider of the South African Police Service. He's well known in the South African police because he was at the time running a hospital at a subs college. As far as I know, he was awarded a healthcare contract at the police. I, however, do not know exactly the detail of the contract because that's between supply chain and it's in another division. And then during about February 2024, when I was acting National Commissioner, Mr. Matlala set up an appointment to visit me at my office. On his visit, Mr. Matlala complained that he has been awarded the tender, but he was not allowed to use the facility and thus not able to deliver in terms of the tender agreement.
And is it your evidence that you only then met him, had contact with him, interacted with him from time to time, like the other generals
Yes.
in the service, at some of these occasions at the college, in his capacity as a service provider?
As a service provider, as a stakeholder, yes.
So firstly, meeting him 5 times, that's a lot of times to meet somebody like Vusi Matlala. Then there's something I want to point out. The head of organized crime investigation, you're a deputy national commissioner at this level, you're looking at organized crime. How could you not be aware of such a prominent figure in organized crime, either from word of mouth, from social media, or from the discussions that are happening within police circles? I mean, everybody in Pretoria has heard of this guy, implicated in cash and transit, house robberies, drug dealing, all kinds of stuff, right? Somebody who's being reported on frequently in connection with attempted murders at that point, right? Hits on significant people. You mean to tell me he didn't look into this guy at the same time that he's trying to get to know the guy, trying to figure out what is this guy actually about? That to me doesn't add up. If he did not know all of the details at that point, then it's one of two things. Either he was grossly negligent because he didn't take time to look into this guy, but he took the time to Google Brown Moti, watch Brown Moti's videos, get to understand who's Brown Moti. As a person who's heading an organized crime team at a national level, that level of seniority, level 15, pay grade, whatever the case may be, with all of these bodyguards who follow you around, all of that stuff, you mean to tell me you could not get a dossier on this guy, information on this guy, use the various tools available to the police to get clarity on this guy? We heard from General Matlala that this guy's had over 90 interactions or infractions with the police, dockets withdrawn, etc., etc. How could you not be aware that this is somebody who has had a prior conviction and has had all of these skirmishes with the law where cases against him consistently just seem to be dropped, withdrawn, whatever the case may be? That to me, it's either he was negligent or he knows who this guy is and is not telling the whole story of what he knows and how he came to know this man. Cibia also says that Matlala approached him when he was acting national commissioner to speak about the Medicare issues of, they're not being able to access the police training college clinics where they wanted to operate, and then that he was taking that issue up. That's an odd issue for him to be discussing with anybody, even as an acting person, because General Sibiya is acting. So if this guy comes to me while I'm acting and the national commissioner's on leave, why would I be trying to get him access to, supply chain disputes? Why would I be trying to get him access to the hospital, the police college clinics? That seems like something that I would say, let's wait for the national commissioner to come through. He's going to be able to deal with this. He's going to be able to look into that. I don't think it's something that has anything to do with Cibia. When you're acting, you don't make these types of high-level decisions. I don't think he was supposed to mitigate that, investigate that, officiate that, referee that, intervene in any particular issue. Even if you're acting, I don't think you touch that. The big problem that Cibia has, in my view, is that he's now been linked with Mogotsi, he's now been linked with Matlala. He's admitted to knowing these people, meeting these people, being in touch with them, and his explanations are not adding up at this particular point. I don't know if it's going to be picked up. By the way, I wanted to mention earlier, Julius Malema not going to be available Monday, Tuesday, only going to be available Thursday, Friday. I think that's when Senzo Mkhunu comes through. I think he's the type of figure that would have brought a different energy to this. I don't know why he's not there. I don't have any information about that, but it's one of the factors that affects this. So at the time of recording, when I was recording this, the committee was still listening to Cibia. I'll add more around what happened after this recording in the interim so that to tomorrow's episode. But as things stand, I think that those answers are going to be very difficult for General Cibia going forward. And it's looking hot. It's looking hot. It's getting hot in here. Washu Tupac key. Washu Tupac. Tupac told us. Movie, drama, series. Make sure you subscribe. I'll catch you in the comment section. Till the next one.